told you my partner has cancer.
So that's not public knowledge, right? So we don't
Oh
want
no, I don't. No, it doesn't worry me. It's just we've not announced it on social media. It's just I'll talk about it eventually. I don't mind talking about it now. That's
Okay.
not a problem.
Well, let's start with, how was your week?
My week was pretty intense.
Wow.
But good. It's just I've been working a lot, so I have a second job as well, so that keeps me occupied. And I think I told you my partner has cancer, so and that sort of tied in. I've not notified. It's not announced on Facebook, but it's just close friends, know. But in that way, it's been a really good distraction having my second job as well, because it helps me get away just from that little bit of time out, away from the environment.
So that's not public knowledge, right? So we don't want
Oh no, I don't. No, it doesn't worry me. It's just we've not announced it on social media. It's just I'll talk about it eventually. I don't mind talking about it now. That's not a problem. Just that a lot of people aren't aware. I haven't gone, Clive's got, esophageal cancer. But definitely, because he's had, just to quickly fill you in, he was diagnosed, my book launched on Australia Day here, which was the 26th of January. And then the next day, pretty much, he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. And then, but the long story short, the good news was it was curable. And so that's what we just had to focus on. It hadn't spread into, major parts of the body or anything like that. It just gone into a node, but they weren't too concerned. So he had to make the decision whether or not to have chemotherapy, because that goes against everything he believed in. But in the meantime, he couldn't swallow, so he had to have a nose tube. And he had that for quite a few months, and he couldn't progress any further unless he had chemotherapy treatment to get the nose tube out. So he looked at alternatives, but it would have just taken a lot longer. So we went and saw, had a couple of opinions with it, and then much to his disgust, he didn't want to go down the chemotherapy end, but he did, and then he had the major surgery. So that was probably about 2 months ago now. And he's been home. He's been home probably about 6 weeks now. So he's recovering really well. He's the nose tube's gone, so he's back onto soft foods, but it's just a process, because with the esophageal cancer, where it was located, they have to take like a part of the esophagus away, and then they have to bring the stomach up. It sort of like hitches up. And then so it's in a completely new different part, and it just takes such a long time. But apparently it's probably one of the biggest procedures that there is, and it takes a long time to recover. So he's got a lot of side effects that he's dealing with the chemotherapy with, like the neuropathy. So, but his is quite a bad case. And anyway, they made a decision. He's not going to have any more chemo post-surgery now. So the effects of it far outweighed what the benefits would have been. So they're really happy with his progress. And he's really happy.
That's good.
Yeah.
In my mind now, right, because you said that they had to kind of pull the stomach up. So in my mind now, wouldn't that impact the lungs? How would that, does it affect his breathing?
Yeah, so they had to, a part of the procedure, they had to collapse his lung so they could, access it. And so he only had like 20% of it working at one point when he was in hospital. But they have to do a lot of exercises, and it helps with me because I watch everything that they do and try and step in as much as I can. And then it's all walking, getting up, getting the exercises to expand the lungs. So, but he's getting there, and he's going really well.
Okay.
So one of the things I did say to him, with cancer, is that like everyone's different. And I've nursed my mother-in-law with cancer, and I've dealt with a lot of clients with cancer, but not like this, because I'm living with them. And I was just looking around, observing everything, taking everything in all at the start. And I just had to assess our situation. And I said, look, Clive, we're on this cancer train. And I said, but it doesn't mean we have to get off on every stop. So, we can get off on the stops that we need to. Some stops might be a bit longer, but we get back on that train. And I said, we just focus on the destination, and that's curable and the outcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what we had to do. So, yeah, I've been balancing that as well. So,
Okay. Well, you guys have a very positive attitude towards it, and that's really important,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah,
The
definitely. Like,
mindset and yeah,
huge, because
yeah,
you can't take it away. It is what it is.
yeah,
But how you are every day really affects on your thoughts as
yeah,
well. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some days I
yeah,
feel like I'm, poor me.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I'm okay with that, because it's not, I don't think like that. It's just some days I go, oh my God, I feel so helpless. I feel, all these
yeah,
other thoughts. And
yeah,
I know that that's normal.
yeah,
But
yeah,
you've got to go through it.
yeah. Life can be overwhelming, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
And
But
that's
you got to look for the positives.
exactly, yeah, you really got to look for the positive. I mean, it doesn't, I think this mindset that most people have, that when you reach a certain point in your life is going to get easy, that you're just going to breeze through. And I think this is something that people are constantly trying to aim for, and not
Mm.
realizing that life is like this, literally, like up and down. I almost spilled my water. Life is, up and down. It's not like, that would be unrealistic expectation, isn't it? When we
Yeah.
think that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think even with sharing with my own vulnerability like that, it's like, poor me. It's not like, no, it's not poor me, the victim. It's like all these other feelings that usually you would deny and go, oh, don't be silly, gosh, they've got it far worse. But it's really important to, acknowledge your
Yeah.
own.
Yeah.
And I've learned that, and it's okay. It's what you do with it.
Yes, exactly. As a caregiver, right? There will be times when you get so overwhelmed that you feel like, oh my God, like who is coming to save me?
You do, and you get tired,
Yeah.
because like at the moment I'm prepping all the food, which is okay, but that's on top of what I'm doing
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
It sounds minuscule, I know, but there's a lot of extra work and
Yeah.
doing everything around the house here, and we rent at the moment, and so we had a house inspection recently, which is okay. Like it's not too bad, but I had to make sure that the lawns were mowed like the week before, because I had to cut the hedge the week after. But, it's just one of those things, but it's an everyday thing you have to factor in. And, the
Yeah.
workload is a lot more, and, there's more on you. And it's the days when you're really tired,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like, oh God, I can't be bothered doing this. I'm so tired. But
Yeah.
you just have to pick up. I had many years ago, I had a surrogate grandfather. I called him my surrogate grandfather, and he was a really important person in my life at the time. And I used to do gardening, I loved garden design, and I did this garden for this older man. And him and his wife became friends, close friends. And she was 92 when she passed, I think, and he was 86. But I'd known her for a couple of years. And then when it came to my divorce, I always knew that he was a prisoner of war on the Burma rail, but he never really spoke about it. And then until I got divorced, and his way of trying to help me through it was sharing some of his insights and things
Yeah.
that he learned to get through in really bad conditions. And he said he was supposed to be executed that day the Japanese surrendered. So he sees himself as really lucky, because by a certain time it would have been, the execution was supposed to take place, but thankfully the surrender happened before that. And he explained how his life, because he was there for 3 years, and just men's mindsets and just different situations. And he said the thing that got him through was that instead of focusing on how bad everything was, and like he was dwindling away to nothing like everybody else, but he tried to find a positive in everything, every day. And he said, always find a positive, Lena, no matter what goes on in your life, always find a positive, always find something to be thankful for. And I thought, God, that's so right. And I thought, and here's a man that had every reason
Yeah.
to be affected or whatnot. Now, anyway, he lived on and he passed of just natural causes when he was in his, I think it was about 92.
Wow.
A very important person. Anyway,
Yeah.
so how was your week?
Wow. 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 So before we talk about my week, I want to talk about then from, what you've been going through this past months, right? From January till now. Besides those moments where you felt like, oh, poor me, like, oh, I'm overwhelmed. How do you then turn it around to empower yourself besides this wisdom from this friend of yours, right?
Yeah.
What were the points or highlights where you felt empowered? Maybe you can share this with us.
Yeah, definitely. I just had to focus on what you can do, and not what you can't, because once upon a time, I mean, I was always brought up as like most people of our era, don't think of yourself always, don't be selfish, put everybody first and yourself last. And so you always had that guilty thing if you put yourself, if you thought about yourself, it was like, oh, how can I? I'm so selfish. But then I learned through this particular process that, hey, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay. I've got needs and wants too, because I understand my position is to help in this situation, a personal situation, and I can't give any help if I'm not feeling good about myself. And if I keep suppressing it, it's going to get worse. So what works for me was my workouts going, because, that stimulates the energy as well, and it stimulates the mindset. And then, look, there was days I just didn't want to do anything, so I didn't. But, walking and spending time in nature, I always knew that was my go-to place, because it's just resets everything, and it's just my way. And luckily I've got a lot of good, beautiful places to choose from around where I live. But even, just going for a park, going to the park or going for a walk anywhere, just outside, just to break that environment. I was sort of reminded on what are the things that I like doing and do them, and just be kind to myself at the time.
Tidbit for all of us.
I think it's just, not everyone's, coping mechanism is different. And, as we know, energy, what's the saying? Energy flows where the thoughts go, or something.
Energy goes where, something like that. Oh boy, I can't remember the quote now, but it's something along those lines.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's good. So my week, I started the week with sending my daughter to the airport. She was here in Singapore for 2 weeks, summer break from the UK. And then, after she left, I have to get my life back into rhythm, right? With work, with my usual, routines. And because when she was here, I didn't have time or didn't have the space really to do my regular exercises. And so when I got back into my kettlebell workout, I really felt it like, oh my God. But when she was here, we did a lot of walks, right? We did like long walks, we went biking. But I guess, if you lose the momentum of doing your regular workouts, you come back to it, it's like, oh my God, my body's aching. And so that was good, getting back on track. And I had a busy week with work as well. So, but it was a good week, really good week, and ended off last night with having a meal with a friend. We had durian. Do you know durian?
No.
Okay, so durian is it's tropical fruit. It's called the king of fruit, and most Asians don't mind the smell of durian, but most Westerners would. They think it smells worse than blue cheese.
Yeah.
So, but it's an acquired taste, right? So some people who have lived in Singapore long enough, right? If they're from the West and they live in Singapore long enough, they love it, because it's somewhat like blue cheese, but then when you eat it, it's like custard. Yeah, but you have to get used to the smell. Some people just take to it naturally, while others, like my daughter, just no, don't give me that stuff, right? Whereas I love it. So I had durian with a friend. It was a nice evening. Yeah.
And then, so what do you do when you're, when you had the interruptions with your daughter and, your routine was, disrupted? And so, as you said, you lose the momentum. So what do you do in that time,
Mm.
right? So, like, because the momentum is quite easy to keep going once you're there, but when you're interrupted, so how do you get through that? What do you do in those times?
I think I used to get really upset if my schedule or my momentum is being interrupted, because then it feels like everything is falling apart, right? And you're trying to get things done. Reminded myself that it is okay, my schedule is going to be disrupted, as long as I know what's going to happen after, like how I can get back my rhythm and make sure. So the day she left on Monday night, I made sure on Tuesday morning that I went out and did my 10,000 steps, and then come back and did my kettlebell. So I made sure I feel, for me, it's very much like you, exercise, right? Walks. My walks are very important. So walking, exercise gets me back into rhythm. It's not because I enjoy them, but because I know that these hard things to do on the body will get you back, right? Because if you do the hard things, the easier things become so much easier and much more enjoyable.
Definitely.
And so I do these difficult things usually, if I want to get back into rhythm, because if I can overcome them, then okay, the rest is just, I'm just gonna flow through it. And so it's always this, the inner struggle, isn't it? Like, oh, I don't feel like doing this now. But you get on with it. You do the hardest things first. That's always my belief. You do the hard things first, the rest of the day is just going to be so much easier. And and people often ask me, why do you wake up so early in the morning? Like, why, what's this, because it's not easy. I mean, I started this habit a long time ago, right? So obviously now it's easier. It's automatically I just wake up without the alarm. But I first started with like an alarm, right? And needing help to wake up early, because it's a hard thing to do. And no matter what time I go to bed, I make sure I wake up at the same time. Because it's not an easy thing to do.
Good.
Maybe I sound like I'm torturing myself, but but I feel that if we do the hard things first, then everything just gets easier. It has worked for me. I don't know.
Definitely. It's interesting you should say that, because I did a post yesterday about, like, as we're older now, like, for instance, in my line of work where people are working out, so, and for some reason people have stopped working out for whatever life interruptions. And so it's a really hard job for them to get going and to get started. But what's the biggest thing that holds them back is comparing themselves to what they used to do or could do when they were younger. And my post was reflecting that, saying, stop looking back, the time is now. Because, and I'm guilty of that too, even in my 30s, at the time, or now I look back going, oh my God, I had all that energy to compare to what I am now. But at that time in my 30s, I was comparing myself to other people. I was running. I'm not as fast as a runner as them. I don't like the way I look. I don't like my legs. I don't like this and I don't like that. But then little do you realize that actual time that you're in at that moment is a reflection point for later on. So in one way, I look at it and think, okay, so mid-50s now, or whatever that age is, yes, we're not 20 or 30 or anything like that. There we are, what we are now. But if we don't do something about it now, later on it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
So the things, I just sort of keep that at the back of my mind, because it's, where we are now in 20 years' time, we'll be looking back thinking, oh my God, I had all that energy.
I know. Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? When we look back at our old photos, right? Like the things that we griped about. Go like, oh, like I didn't like my hair, I didn't like my dressing, or whatever it may be, right? And then when we look at those photos and we go like, I didn't look that bad.
What was I complaining about? I know, but it's how we are at the time. And that's where I think, like, now, even though, interruptions, might occur for whatever reason, let's just get back on and don't worry about the comparison or all this other stuff. I mean, when my partner was going to all the hospital things, and like I was at the hospital nearly every day, and I just didn't put the pressure on me for my workouts, because I have a certain amount of workouts that I like to do, because, I say to my clients, I have to keep strong.
Yeah.
So I can lift their weights, but I feel good knowing I've done something, but I didn't put the pressure on myself. So if I got a workout in, great. Anyway, long story short, it was 4 months nearly by the time I actually did a leg workout, because for 2 months I was using my run, and I was okay because I wasn't putting the pressure on myself. Anything.
Yeah.
I was just happy just to move. But for the last 2 months, I couldn't do anything. So when when my partner got out of hospital and when things were sort of, all that traveling sort of minimized, I thought, great, I'm in a routine. I think it was the 1st of August. It's when I started, right, that's it. I won't have any interruptions. I'm not going to put pressure on myself, but I'll get into some structure now. My first leg workout, I thought, oh God, it's probably about 4 months since I've done one of these. So anyway, I'd written a program, and it was hard, but I knew it would be easier after that.
Yeah.
I couldn't move for 4 days. And I go through the same things as everybody else. Yeah.
Yes, we all, like, no matter what we do, right? Whether we are a fitness coach or a relationship therapist, you go through stuff too, right? I mean, we don't have all the answers.
Definitely, yeah. And I think you can be a bit hard on yourself sometimes, because you feel like you shouldn't be going through this. But I say, oh well, it connects me to my clients, and my clients knew what was going on. But but also knew that I wasn't hard on myself, because I physically couldn't do anything more than what I was doing, and I needed to sort of conserve the energy that I did. But I said, it's not how far you fall, it's how you bounce back.
Yeah, exactly. A year ago, my mom was hospitalized with a fractured hip. And that was really tough, like, having to shuttle back and forth to the hospital like every day, right? Going to a hospital, see her. Well, I mean, for the most part, she could be left alone, but because she has dementia, so it was really difficult. So because of dementia, we, my sister and I took turns to see her, just to make sure that she knows that she's in a safe space. And dementia patients are, it's another challenge altogether, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, for 6 months, right, our schedule was just completely disrupted. Work suffered, a lot of things, happening. And then, you get after a while, you get used to the chaos. I'm sure that's how you felt, right?
Yeah.
You get used to the chaos and you feel like, okay, this is just a way of being. And then when things are settled, right, when things are like settled and you get back into your routine, you almost feel like you have too much time.
I know. I'm glad you said that.
Right? You almost feel that way. And you go like, what did I used to do with my time before mom went to hospital? Right? You start to question, like, what did I used to do with my time? Because I got everything done, even though it was disruptive, then having to juggle going to the hospital, seeing her, taking care of dad as well. So it's like, going to 2 places rather than just the hospital, right? Of course, I have to go see my father as well. So it's, so much more work done. But I got them done. And even though, work suffered, certain aspects of life suffered, but I still got most things done. And then you reflect back and you go like, wow, so it really just shows us, like, if we've been pushed to the limits, right, we can actually do so much more. We can actually, I think the human spirit is something where it's like a rubber band, right? We can really stretch it. And so I think this is something that maybe most of us forget until we go through something difficult, that we realize that, hey, I do have the resilience, I do. And then reminding myself like how important self-care is. And I think, to get back into our routine, right? And self-care, I think that's one big way to empower ourselves. Yeah.
Definitely. And that's one of the things that was really reminded of me. And I think I was fortunate enough to know a few people in the nursing industry as well. And they said, Lena, you've got to take care of yourself your self-care is just as important, you know. And I went, yep, I know, yep, it's good. And my partner would say, make sure that you get your things in, you know, as someone told me a long time ago, take care of the mothership, because then you've got the energy to look after other people, because, you know, we're nurturers, we want to look after people.
Yeah.
But we had to learn, well, I had to relearn that it's okay to do something for myself. It's, you know, not being selfish. So it's a tough juggle, you know, to do that.
Yeah. And I think it's very easy to get caught with doing everything and not realizing that you don't have enough self-care. It can be so right? You just get caught up because it's one thing after another, and then you just keep doing until, you know, maybe it's like you fall sick or you just feel like extremely exhausted. Then you realize, oh my God, you know, I've overdone it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is the point, right? That most of us, you know, fall into the trap of like just overdoing it and not realizing until we're tipped over. And you know, I think this constant reminder to ourselves that we have to take care of ourselves, right? And for other people, right, a support system, people to remind
Definitely.
us to take care of ourselves. I think that's really important. Yeah, if we don't have that,
Definitely.
I think we can get lost in it. Yeah.
And it was interesting in when my partner was having the chemotherapy, like he felt awful. He didn't need to be reminded of all that. So we tried to sort of shift the focus and look, chemotherapy for everyone is different. So,
Yeah.
and there's different types. I'll just talk about our experience. And, you know, like we met, you know, quite a few people that were unfortunately didn't have a choice, you know. So, and I've been with those type of people that have been terminal. So the day would come and it's chemotherapy day, and instead of all bah humbug, because we can do that at home, we were laughing and just biting off, you know, bouncing off one another, you know, with the jokes and just silly kind of jokes. But it really made the situation a bit more easy to deal with than all the downside of things, right? And so there's 4 in a cubicle, and you know, I met some amazing people that unfortunately didn't have a choice to be there, but their outlook was incredible. And one particular lady, she had a really rare blood disorder, and it was the second one that only the hospital near us has ever come across. And she was on out in the country on 400 and so acres, but she had to sell and downsize and move somewhere closer to the hospital, like to 400 square meters. And she said that was the biggest adjustment for her. She's so used to listening to the animals and the bird life to compare when she had nothing. But she had to move because she had to have chemotherapy every single day for 5 days in a row. And it took about 5 to 6 hours every single day. And she was on, I think, her 3rd month. I can't remember the details, but it was for quite some time. And then she would have a break, and then she would repeat that process again down the track. And I looked at this person, we're all sort of sitting there, and she just keeps to herself, and you know, as they do, and you know, they've all got no hair, and you know, somehow everyone's like affected, and we were just sitting there, and then we would start to just laugh and bounce off each other, and the next minute you see another person looking over and they're smiling. Anyway, fast forward and about 30 minutes later, and they're laughing and they're doing just, you know, just different things, and to them it was just that little bit of a break away from their own world. It just gave them a little bit of laughter, a little bit of lightness, you know, just something to deal with. And my partner always used to say, you know, thank you for laughing at my crappy jokes. Support system is really incredible because, you know, we met some people that didn't really have a support system, and or if, you know, we had a really good, in a way, in an unfortunate situation, we tried to make it as positive as can be, just to cope.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's is there like an organized network where cancer patients get some form of support in where you are?
Yeah, oh gosh, there is so much, you know, to you know, and the local hospital have just been fantastic. But and like I've trained many unfortunate women with breast cancer and prostate cancer as well. It's really difficult times, and I've lost a couple of clients. I've lost 2 clients with breast cancer down the track, and it wasn't very nice. But having the right support system around them is really important. And, mental health, like I said to, my partner, look, because he had access to free psychology, yes, he'd have to go on a waiting list. And I said, just say yes. Because you don't know, like, you might get to the time where, you might be okay. You don't need to talk to someone, but it takes, a few months to, to get, the appointment. And I said, you just don't know. Just keep an open mind, because you don't have to be there by yourself. You've got the right person with you, and it can really help ease those, the mental strain, because it helps you with the, your recovery. It also helps with your ability to bounce back, like, to, I don't know, make some of the tough decisions as well. When you're so clouded, it's like trying to make a decision when you're so tired all the time. You just can't. But, yes, he lost most of his hair, he lost a lot of those things. And I said, yeah, but look at all the things you still have. Hair grows back. It's overrated anyway.
Yeah. Yesterday, I was in a business meeting, and a friend of mine, shaved his head because in Singapore there is this movement called Hair for Hope, or Hope for Hair, or something like along those lines, where you shave your head, in solidarity for cancer patients, and it's a donation drive basically for the organization. So a few of my friends I know who have gone through the process. So that is one way to show some form of solidarity if people are into that. But I think any kind of support that we can give, because I think the worst thing that anyone can go through is when they're ill, right? And they journey that alone. I think that's really, really sad, when there is let's say if a person doesn't have family, they don't have anyone they can lean on, and they have to journey this all by themselves. It is tough if there is no help from any healthcare bodies or anything like that. I think people should reach out, seek help, and in whatever way they can, and like this podcast that we have here, right? I think it's our wish and our desire to form a community for women, right, at midlife, to be, or men for that matter, to be empowered. And I hope that we are able to achieve that by people just connecting with us, comment below, let us know how our sharing, our conversation is helping you, or maybe if you're listening, you want to be more empowered, or you are already empowered, share your life story with us, in the comments below, and we'll be happy to share that also with maybe in our next recording we can share stories from.
Love listening to all other people's stories as well, because it just is part of that connection. And I think, and like you said, the community is really important, because the hardest part is that when you go through certain things, a lot of people, well, including myself, they always think, you're the only one that's going through it.
Yeah.
And, it's not. It's just that you might see that at the time, and that's all that matters. But it's nice to know that other people go through, the same things as well. And sometimes they don't have that support system. So they rely on a community and things like that to help them get through, just to get a few little words, even if it's just some inspiring words, or just one or two little bits of, a few tips or bits of information that will help them. That's just enough for them to keep, reaching, looking ahead. They go, oh, thank God, I just needed to hear that. Or, wow, it helps me put my own plans in perspective. And even recently we had a community dietitian who helps my partner. And like, yes, I know all about the food, but from a completely different angle. So I can use a bit, my knowledge to help. But I'm just, the more I know, the more I learn, the more I don't know. At the same time, my partner needs to make sure he doesn't lose any more weight. And you can't just go from what his condition into eating burgers and chips. It doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work that way.
He doesn't have an appetite. He doesn't have a desire for food. There's a whole heap of, things going on there. So, but I meal prep, some of those meals just to help him with that. And my partner was asking the dietitian, well, she came here yesterday, but then she was here 2 weeks ago, and he was just talking about how he's progressing, because he just feels like he's going backwards. And how long does this take? Because it's yes, it is a long journey, but he just wants his old life back, basically. At least with my partner, and I remember saying at the time when he was having the chemotherapy, at least your nutrition is going to be okay, because you've got a nasal tube, so you don't have to worry about appetite, sickness. You just, 5 or 6 of these feeds go in each day, and at least you've got everything at optimum levels. So your body can just deal with whatever it needs to. It doesn't have to try and combat the nutrition component as well. And mind you, it's not, the best type of nutrition, but it still kept his calories up.
When you talk about that, I think about myself, right? I'm naturally an introvert, and when I go through stuff, I like to be alone. Mental, emotional stuff. I like to be alone, and sometimes I think, is that even a healthy thing? But for me, going through it alone helps me to process it. With input from other people, I feel it interferes with my healing process. And choosing to be alone helps in the healing process, rather than, I guess it's sensitivity levels, right? On how sensitive you are. Because I grew up in an environment where it's just when your energy field is constantly bombasted with like strong dominant energies coming into your field all the time, right? You have I just developed this high sensitivity, and I just want to be left alone so that I can heal, right? So for me, I know that's my pattern of behavior. When I go through something, I do need space, and I want to be alone. I want to be able to hear myself. So because of high sensitivity to noise, people who speak loudly, it just grates into my nervous system. And so when I think about this, like what kind of I have a therapist, so I work with a therapist when I go through stuff. But when I think about community, whether I have such a community when I'm going through stuff, I may have friends, but I'm not someone who would share something really deep about what's going on within me. And I've been that way for a long time. And it is only maybe this year that I am a little bit more open about sharing. I'm a little bit more, I would share my, darker stuff that went on when I was younger, and all of that.
So what was the change? Like, what brought that change about? Like, what allowed you then to open up and talk about things?
I don't know. It felt like a natural transition into it. So in many ways, I felt like the lockdown, the pandemic and all that was like my metamorphosis.
Yeah.
I was in this cocoon, right, for 3-4 years. It was a good process for me, because I was in a cocoon. I was, going through my own metamorphosis, and I feel somehow, that I just came out of this cocoon, right? And then going through a difficult time last year with my mom in the hospital, and struggling and trying to, I can't even put my finger down to what it is exactly, but it just happened, where I really felt like I came out of the cocoon and my wings started spreading. And it's interesting for me to say this, because I've been on the journey of healing and learning and being a teacher, and I've been through many, many changes and metamorphoses in my own healing process, and I've shared those moments with people. But this deep, deep, dark part of myself that I kept, right? And that's why, I wrote my ebook about navigating narcissistic relationships. And then, and now I feel like, oh, okay, I can share more. I can talk about it more. I feel safer. And maybe my own being, right? My own nervous system, my own body feels safer to share. And I think safety has a lot to do with our nervous system, not so much whether there are people around us or not, whether we have people to support us or not. It's really all in our nervous system, and how we are relating on how the nervous system is serving us or not. So I think that's the transformation that took place. I don't know whether it's physiology, the physiology of my being, or is it psychological, or is it I don't know. But if I want to go woo-woo a little bit, if I look at my astrology, it actually indicated that this is the year that I would actually open my wings and look, share the shadow, the deep dark stuff, right? And so that was kind of mind-boggling for me when I experienced it. And then when I look at my the astrology readings, and I go like, oh my God, this is saying it, like, wow, am I like, what did I follow? Like, did I follow this prompting from the stars or what? I don't know, but it's just, it's quite something.
It's interesting when that happens, because I know that I've been dealing with some things. I mean, we all do. We're human, right?
Yeah.
And there's just some things you just don't. Well, for me, there was just some things that I just wasn't even aware of, and all of a sudden, it's like it starts tapping you on the shoulders. It will show you a little bit, and you go, no. And then one day, that might just become a little bit more frequent, and then one day you go, okay, maybe I'll look at that. And I not even aware of it, that was even there, for instance.
Yeah.
But I think too, as you get older, you've got a little bit more confidence.
Yeah, for sure.
As well. And for me, growing up, security was a huge, big thing. So anything, if I challenged that and if there was a threat of insecurity, oh my God, I would bottle up, because to me, that was the unknown, and that just really is like pulling the rug from under my feet at the time. And but now I've learned to ride the waves, that it's okay. And I don't know if these things are slowly starting to peel back, to slowly expose these other little things. And we're all growing all the time, and it's all timing, as you know. And some days you can look at it, and other days you go, no, I'll just shut the guy. It can come out again later. But I think the more it sort of presents itself, I think when the time's right, it will come out. And I've always spoken from the heart, but I can be a people pleaser. In the past, I think we've all been guilty of that, and it's okay to not agree, or it's okay to have a different opinion. I wouldn't have a debate about things. I'm not that way inclined. It's just that, I would normally, someone would ask my opinion and I would speak up. I know it's okay. And I just know that we would have a difference of opinions, but also know when to back down, not to push, but just to voice. I would never have voiced before. So that's something that's happened over the years, just within certain situations that will come in, and it's having the confidence, I think, knowing, and the reassurance, knowing it's going to be okay. And, some days you don't want to look at it and you can put it back. It's okay. But that's really good that you've done that.
I think this thing about voicing out, I've also learned something, right? That when I was very young, I mean, I have no issues with voicing out, but I was voicing out from a very combative position, right? Because of, I guess, survival, right? Emotional, mental survival, where you just have to combat and you make sure that you are heard. I mean, even if no one is listening, you just want to do it because you feel like if you don't, you are just going to disappear. You're just going to be pushed in a corner, right? And so when I was young, it was more combative, right? I want to stand up for myself. I'm standing up for something. I'm saying something, not because of anything else, but rather in a very combative position. But of course, as I grew older, I realized how you can stand up and speak up, but you come from a totally different position, right? You come from a position of empowerment. You come from a position of, you are stating boundaries. You are, you're sharing that, you're setting your boundaries. You feel like you're coming from a position of strength. You're not coming from a position of weakness or wanting to fight, with people. So there are different ways, right, in how we want to do with standing up for ourselves. And I've heard people who are confused, right? They've asked me this question. Some of my clients will ask me, what does it mean to stand up for ourselves? And I have friends also sharing, right, where they go like, oh, when do I stand up for myself? And I always tell them this, and I share from my personal experience that you stand up for yourself from a position of strength. not from a position of weakness. Because when you come from weakness, you tend to be combative. You tend to want to win the argument, right? You tend to want to one up, just feeling better about yourself. But that's not how it is. That's not standing up for yourself. Standing up for yourself is really coming from a position of strength and to be clear on your boundaries. And whether the person accepts it or not should not affect how you stand in your position. And if they say no to you, they refuse to accept where you are, fine. I still stand in my position. You can keep your position. I keep my position, right? It's not about picking a fight. It's not about cowering, and saying, okay, you're right, I'm wrong. No, it's just accepting that, hey, we can have a difference of opinion and just leave it as that. But to have the strength of saying, hey, this is where I stand, this is what I represent, this is who I am. I think that's really important. That really keeps us I feel like it allows our inner being, our soul, to really blossom when we're able to do that.
Definitely. And then like what you said, when it comes from strengths, that makes such a big difference as opposed to when it comes from, another intent. And one of the things I had to learn growing up, because what's all in my book about my childhood there, but being a people pleaser was the fact that because my mum and stepdad used to drink a lot. And so it wasn't a very good childhood at all. And I left at 16 because survival. So, but they used to try and mess with your head. And so if I would say something just completely innocently said, it can be twisted.
Yeah.
And then it be heard against you. So that's why I was I always used to go in, and it was about people pleasing and at the end of the day, it was just so I wouldn't get in trouble for something that I didn't do. I was forever grounded. But and I think that's where all my mindset started off. I was made out to be this bad person all the time, or that's, I felt, but I wasn't. I then later realized it was coming from them, not me. But, having to unravel all those, the damages and things like that, that only life events can help bring that about. And to the point now where you said about, setting your boundaries, and it's okay to say no. It's okay that, I love and adore you, but no, and putting yourself first. You've got to check in with yourself, and it doesn't mean that you're any less of the other person. It's just that you're respecting yourself, and it's a really big thing as a woman to do that as well, because we are also conditioned to put everyone first, ourselves last, and then we would be seen as selfish, as what we were just talking about earlier. And then learning to know that, hey, no, I've got needs and wants too, just like everybody else.
Exactly.
And I'm just as an important person as what you are, so it's learning to know that, it's okay. And that's a big lesson to learn for a woman, and empowerment is huge, because it's not, it's that inner strength. It's, within that essence of yourself. And because there's only one of you.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think also one thing that women need to understand is that empowerment doesn't mean fighting men.
Oh, God, no.
I think there's so many false beliefs that if you are an empowered woman, that means you hate men. No.
No, I love men.
Or like you hate men, or you are more masculine. It doesn't mean that at all, because female empowerment is a totally different category of empowerment, right? There's so much strength and power and creation and birth and all of that, all in one package. It's a totally different kind of empowerment we're talking about, definitely not fighting men.
Because, as like women would say, look, each their own, but, we're not about that. And, I don't need a man. I can do it myself. It's like, no, I need a man. I like a man. So I'm very independent. I like to do things, but I also like having a man in my life, because I've also realized that the man needs to feel important and, feels like he can contribute, and that he's needed. you know, and I was very independent in my early days of my marriage, and to the point, without going into a lot of detail, but, you know, I had young children to bring up, and I had, you know, these young little people that were reliant on me as well. And I couldn't just sit back and go, oh, no, I don't feel like it one day and other days I do. It's just, I had to get it done. And if the other party became involved, that's great. So I was very organized. And but someone had to set, you know, some sort of a routine. And and then I, you know, looking back on reflection, and because, you know, divorce, as much as it's has its moments, yes, there's always two parties involved, and I've always looked at, well, what have I contributed? You know, I'm not right, I'm not perfect, I've done something to upset, you know, I've made a contribution in this. And, you know, and I've often reflected, thinking maybe I was just a bit too independent as well. You know, maybe, you know, my husband, you know, at the time didn't feel like he was needed. I mean, yeah, he was wanted and things like that, but it was always, I can just do it myself, don't worry. Whereas now I go, okay, you can do it. Yeah, it was just that ability of control and just running things smoothly and efficiently. With, you know, young children, we were very sporty, we had to be organized, so I didn't have time for anything disjointed. It had to be sort of, you know, it was sort of set into a routine. And I mean, we flourished on that, but just as in relationships wise, and I realized that I could probably be a bit, at the time I was probably a bit too independent.
Yeah. But you know, we bring into our relationships things that we learned as children, right? And sometimes we do things because it's a trauma response, or we do things as a like a survival response because of what we didn't get, right? I mean, if we were, for example, if we were not cared for, then when we grow up, you know, we are, you know, like maybe hyper vigilant about caring, you know. So it, you know, our experiences really shape us, and how you know, how we become parents, how we become carers, how we become so many things that we do in our lives. And I think we, you know, there is no magic, right, to make relationships work, and people are how they are. And if people are willing to work together, right, as a couple, and grow together, then chances of working is higher, versus
Definitely.
relationships where one wants to grow, the other is just laid back and say, okay, no, it's not my problem. Then there's no growth, then it's harder to journey together. So, you know,
It is.
that's
And,
what
you know,
happens.
you hit the nail on the head too, you know, what you're saying about what you've been brought up with and how you've been conditioned, because it doesn't mean you have to go down that road all the time, but, you know, there's a connection there, you know, as you know, of all people. But, you know, mine was about vulnerability as well, you know, not letting to be seen that I couldn't do anything, you know, that I'm capable, I was good enough, because all my childhood I was always told I was never good enough. And I think that when I look back, you know, on that reflection, it was that I just sort of wanted that acknowledgement. The more I did, I think it was when I peel back all the words and those, you know, every situation, it would have just been nice to go, geez, Lee, you're doing a good job. And I think that that's where I was looking for that acknowledgement in a way, because the more I did, the more I needed to do. If I didn't get that acknowledgement, I didn't give to get. It was not about that. It was just, I think that I could be seen as I was capable and reliable and I could do things, but I was also feeling I was never good enough either. So the more I did. Whereas now I just go, oh, well, if you don't like it, don't look at it. But they're all the things that you learn, and as long as you learn, and but have that vulnerability, I think is really, you know, really important to show, you know, within reason. And that, like you said, you know, the community here, it's about, you know, of equal balance. It's not about women's lib or anything like that. It's showing that vulnerability, but also, you know, we need the men just as the men need the women.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, I love this conversation that we're having. You know, we'll have more of it for sure, but I think we've come to the end of this episode, right? So shall we end off? And I'll say bye first. Bye everyone. See you now next recording, next podcast. And I'm Shamala Tan from Singapore.
And thank you, Shamala. And I'm Alina Anderson from Australia in Sunshine Coast. So yeah, we look forward to our discussion in the next recording. And yeah, we just never know where our conversations go.
See you all next week.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
I think we have to remember, that this is not coaching. This is conversation.
I think it's hard because I think we're going to get that element of coaching there too, because it's like you can't help yourself. You naturally want to jump in and help or give advice.
I think so.